It takes Viserys like 10 minutes to get to that throne, right? Every like little hobble.
I know.
The cane, and then you just hear ba-da-da-dum, ba-da-da-da-da, and you're like, let's go.
Well, no, he opens those doors because I didn't remember what happened.
Yeah.
He opened those doors and I dead ass almost started. I dead ass almost stood up and started clapping for this fictional character because I was like, yeah, you did it. Well, and I think the idea of it taking him so long, I never felt like it was like too long.
No, well, that's the crazy part because I'm like, I should be so bored. Like it is just watching this old man struggle to walk a straight line, but I'm in it. Hey, I'm Alex.
I'm Madison.
And this is Welcome to the Writer's Room, where we analyze various media and tell you why it works or why it doesn't.
Today we're talking about House of the Dragon, Season 1, Episode 8, titled The Lord of the Tides.
Ooh. Quick spoiler warning, though we are talking about the show House of the Dragon, anything in the Game of Thrones universe is up for spoilers. That is the original book, Fire and Blood, the original Song of Ice and Fire series, the show A Game of Thrones, and any other extended universe material. You've been warned.
Okay, summary?
Yes, let's go. Let me grab my timer. I forgot my phone again.
Here you go.
Oh.
It's mine,
I thought you had my phone. Are you ready?
Yes.
3, 2, 1, Dracarys.
It has been 6 years since the events of the last episode, and Corlys has been gravely injured. This puts into question his successor on the Driftwood throne. Daemon Valerian petitions to the crown that he should have the title, as Lucerys Valerian is believed to be illegitimate. Hearing this, Rhaenyra and Daemon take the whole family back to King's Landing to contest the petition. A lot has changed since they've been there last, including Viserys, whose health is severely declining. Rhaenys has arrived as well, and her loyalty is unclear. Daemon and Rhaenyra are to plead their case to Alicent and Otto, who will decide. All hope looks lost for Rhaenyra when Viserys enters the throne room and saves the day. He claims Lucerys Valerian to be the rightful heir to the Driftwood throne. Viserys brings the whole family together for a dinner in hopes to make things right again. Despite tension between the children, Viserys seems to have succeeded. At the end of the night, Alicent is tending to Viserys, who, thinking she's Rhaenyra, begins to discuss the prophecy. Alicent interprets this to be about her own family, leaving Viserys to take his final breath.
Wow, 53 seconds. Succinct, much like the pacing of this episode.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. I'm really excited. I thought this overall was a very good episode.
Yeah, I was enthralled.
Yeah.
I got kind of emotional too.
Same.
I was like crying a little bit.
Do you want to jump right into it?
Yeah,
I'm so excited
I think we should
to talk
start
about
like from the beginning.
Cool.
So we opened and Rhaenys is talking with a maester about how Corlys has been sick. He was brutally wounded and
we didn't see that. That was all off camera. Okay, I don't think I minded that.
I don't think it had either because it didn't pertain to the plot. It was just like a vessel to get us to this story.
And we've also seen that like the time jump episodes have been sort of a toss up if it's gonna actually feel like time has passed. And I feel like a bigger event happening off camera sort of played into that pretty well. They did like lay it on thick. I think the first line was, "It's been 6 years since I've da-da-da-da."
Literally.
But I feel like tying it to a big event like that made it solidify in my mind that, okay, yes, time has actually passed.
Yeah.
Other things have happened.
I didn't mind it. It was a little on the nose when she was talking. So Rhaenys and the Maester are talking about his condition. And I was kind of like, oh, this is probably going to be a bad episode. Because I was just like, I was like, okay. It was just like super like 6 years. But then like Vaemon, the Maester leaves, Vaemon walks in and that dialogue starts and I was like, okay, here we go, we're rolling.
Yeah, I think I felt the same way. It was a little like almost cheesy at the beginning, but it quickly sort of died down, which was great.
But also I would take cheesy over not understanding. So I felt like I loved that I clearly understood right away what was happening. And so even though the dialogue felt a little cheesy and a little unnatural, maybe is what it was, I didn't care because it was short and it got us to a great episode afterwards and I knew what was happening.
Yeah.
So once Vaemon walks in, I thought this actor did amazing this episode as Vaemon. So Vaemon is Corlys's brother and he's just very upset and he really feels like if Corlys dies, he should be the one taking on the throne. And he kind of just starts like shitting on Corlys and saying like he only cared about history books and he has this ambition and it's brought like calamity after calamity on their house and he doesn't want Lucerys to take the Driftwood throne. Yeah,
it feels like another sort of like Lena pointed episode because spoiler, at the end of the episode, he does end up dying. Daemon slays him. So I think they've done a really good job so far of making an episode sort of about a character and really fleshing them out. I feel like the actor did a great job. I feel like I really knew who Vayman was, even though we've only seen him a few times throughout the series before this. So that was really fun to watch.
That's actually a really good point. That's a good point. So he basically is trying to get Rhaenys to back him, and Rhaenys is, I thought she killed this scene. I just think this actress is phenomenal. She's like sitting on the throne all like spread out and like taking up space, and Bela's there with her, and she sort of like not threatens him, but basically says like, that sounds like treason, dear brother, and that kind of thing. And basically she's saying like the king who sits the Iron Throne it's treasonous to him to say that. He's already decreed. And Vayman goes, it's not a king who sits the Iron Throne, good sister, it's a queen. Yeah.
This was another thing that I alluded to me maybe fearing that it was going to be a bad episode. Okay. I feel like that line specifically set it up perfectly for a transition to Alicent in the small council meeting. Like that's a very Game of Thrones style transition, right? It's not a king who sits a throne. It's a queen close up on Alicent, right?
Yeah.
Because when we meet Alicent, it is in a council session. It's just after another scene. So it feels like it's not as impactful. Yeah. But that's a small thing.
No, I agree. It's clear she's running the show. I think the dialogue, I felt like it hit enough and told us enough that I didn't mind. I do think like a good transition to Alicent running things would have been really strong there.
Yeah. But the scene as all like felt really good. I feel like the showrunners and writers put a lot of the emotional weight on the actors sometimes. Like we have a lot of scenes where they're not really talking, or maybe they'll be like pretty stoic and say a line to sort of bookend.
Yeah.
And it's like, sometimes it works, but I think with Rhaenys it always works.
Yeah,
like, she's so good at it.
Yeah. Well, I felt like this episode they did trust the actors with the dialogue.
Yeah.
So I felt like in the past they're trying to put some sort of gimmick that is like half-assed, kind of like it's like, you know, like the long shot or the scene at the funeral where no one's speaking. And so I felt like with this was just a straightforward episode, and the dialogue was good, and you trusted the actors to be able to carry it out.
We've said this time and time again. I wrote in all caps at my like episode recap, like, just do the basics.
Yeah.
It is so clearly just mastering of the fundamentals that makes this episode really, really shine.
I fully agree. So then we go to Daemon, who's found 3 dragon eggs that Syrax has laid. I thought it was a cool shot. They have that like sweeping shot over the sea. Feels like we're traveling. And then he's like got his like pick, and he's taking the eggs out. I thought that was cool. I don't really understand where he was, I don't think.
I think they were in like the dragon pit at Dragonstone, right?
And it was like,
because they alluded to that last time. They were like, if my dragon has eggs, you're free to take some. So I think they like have a place. I assume they would have a place at Dragonstone for dragon eggs to like hatch down,
he found them. So I think that they were hatched and put there. Like the dragon put them there.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I think, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, so
that was I thought it was sweeping. Again, the only thing I didn't like is that I was expecting to see Alicent.
Yeah, I was too. Honestly, in my head, before
I was like, where is she going?
you said that, and I was like, wait, did they not? And the picture of Alicent popped into my head of her at the small council, and I was like, wait, you're so right. I just did that for them in my head. And then we have Rhaenyra, who's pregnant.
Yep.
And Jace is learning High Valyrian. This was really cute. He's like very upset that he's not getting the High Valyrian because he feels like a king should be able to get it.
Yeah.
And
lots of character in a short scene. Like it's showing his like commitment to what's happening. Rhaenyra's like motherly nature. It's very cool.
Yeah. And then we have Daemon walks in with a letter from Bela about sort of what happened with Rhaenys and Vaemond. And they discuss that basically what are we going to do? Because if Vaemond calls into question Lucerys' heritage and he is not put on the Driftwood throne, then it's going to call into question Jacaerys as well.
Yeah.
And Rhaenyra herself at that point.
This was another one where I think... and maybe it's because it's sandwiched in a lot of other really good dialogue scenes. I felt the dialogue in this scene was a bit on the corny side.
Okay.
And it felt like, because we've been having this sort of poetic language the last few episodes, which I've really been digging, but it felt a little forced. They kept saying like
the serpent.
Yeah, these vipers and da-da-da and this and that. And I'm like, okay, we get it.
Well, I think the difference is they use heightened language when people have heightened emotions. And...
this just feels like a build-up right now. Like we're not at that emotional peak yet.
Yeah, we're not at the boiling point
Mhm.
yet. It's usually when someone has been like angered and it's almost feels like it's a rash decision to say those aggressive words.
Yeah.
And it felt a little bit less like
Mhm.
that. It felt like they were maybe confiding in each other.
For
And
sure.
this is like the two closest people right now. Like they're married, they have children.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can see how it felt not placed right
Yeah.
if it's these two characters, I guess.
I get it. I also wish, this is a very small thing. I wish we could have had a little more insight into how the 6 years have treated the world's feelings about the legitimacy of Rhaenyra's kids, you know?
Okay.
Because we left off with everybody being like, they're bastards. And then we pick up 6 years later and everyone's like, they're bastards, right?
Yeah.
So even a line like, oh, I thought we finally got rid of these rumors, or oh, will this slander ever stop, or something like that.
Yeah.
Again, super small, but like this scene started sort of 6 years ago in my mind.
Yeah, no,
you know?
you're right. That's actually a really good point. It could have taken place in the last episode and it would have
Yeah.
fit.
I've actually, throughout the episode, I was thinking this. I was like, I wish it would have canonically happened right after the last episode. I feel like everything fits so into place with what just happened,
Yeah,
You
I
know?
just think they wanted the kids to be older.
which is fine. And I feel like all the older kids and the kids who were there the last
Mhm.
episode and aged out, I think they're doing a phenomenal job.
I think so too.
like I get, like, if this was your cast from the get-go, I get it. It's
So,
great.
I've thought about this a lot
Mhm.
because on this rewatch, I have liked these episodes so much more.
Absolutely.
And part of that I think is because it's binged, but also part of it is because I know where we're going.
Mhm.
So I know that things are important because I know it's a stepping stone to something. That's why I
Mhm.
felt that if you're a book reader, you're probably enjoying it more.
Sure.
So things like when Aemon's eye gets cut and when he takes Vhagar,
Yeah.
you might not realize the repercussions of that so clearly until you see this episode,
Mhm.
right? And it's not as fun in the moment.
Yeah.
I'm almost wondering, what if they did the show in a series of flashbacks? So what if we
Mm.
started with this cast we get in this episode,
Interesting.
and we tell the
Yeah.
story through different flashbacks? So now we see,
Mhm.
instead of seeing these kids that we latch onto for one episode,
Yeah.
I have the adult Aemond in my head, and now I'm
That's
seeing, oh,
good.
that's baby Aemond. Not, who is this kid again?
Yeah.
Right? I think it could have been really cool. We could have, I don't know where we would have started. That would fully change everything they've done.
Yeah.
But I just think it would have been a cool idea. And now I know what story is being told the whole time.
That is cool. You could also play on the idea of people both remembering things differently and knowing like different sides of things differently, which I think
That's
would be really
true,
neat.
especially because the book in itself is told from someone else's perspective.
Yeah. Or even
that-
I'm thinking like Bran when he's the Three-Eyed Raven in Game of Thrones, right? He just starts seeing the past as it truly was, which
Yeah.
is just super cool to see. So having like this accurate history told by a whole cast of unreliable narrators
Yeah.
seems really fun.
So I don't know how that could have worked out, but I just think it'd be really cool because all these big moments that when I
Yeah.
watch it back, and even in this episode, little things would happen and I'd be
Mhm.
just like, oh my gosh,
Yeah,
because I know where we're going and I know how important those little things are.
for sure.
But I don't get that until. So I think on a rewatch, the show's better. And I think maybe how they could have, or if you've read the books, the show's better. Maybe they could have done it in a series of flashbacks. I think that'd be cool.
Just an idea.
Just an idea. Okay, so Rhaenyra and Daemon basically decide that they're going to have to go back to King's Landing.
Mhm.
And yeah, I do kind of see how it's kind of feels, it feels bullet point-y when we keep changing locations. I didn't mind it, but it's like we didn't really see them on Dragonstone.
I think the biggest difference is everything in this episode is one like plot line, right? Where characters sort of come together and do the thing. But the difference is I was so invested in it.
Mhm.
Like just the way they set it up, the way the pacing, the way the interactions happened. I loved it. Like no
Yeah.
notes about the pacing. But when you're doing a show where the expectation is all of these different storylines that are spinning out, it can be really jarring. So I think they handled it well in this one, but that has been an issue.
Yeah, like on its own, I don't think it's a problem.
Mhm.
But when we just got to Dragonstone and there was a whole episode building up to her going to Dragonstone,
Yeah.
and it's a huge deal that she's leaving King's Landing,
Yeah.
and we never see her at Dragonstone. And the first time, so then we have that funeral, and now we're
Yeah.
leaving for King's Landing. Again.
Exactly. Yeah.
It just feels a little odd.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how you would have fixed that, but whatever. Okay, so then we transition to they're sailing to King's Landing, and we get this musical theme playing.
Yes.
And you asked me about it. It's the like Oz playing.
Yeah.
And I think music is such an amazing way to tell a story.
Absolutely.
And I know they've used this before. I just don't remember what they used it
I think I
before.
realized it reading through these notes. And I noticed it because I've had critiques about it earlier.
Okay.
Saying it sounded very different from how it used to. And I think that's kind of the point now. Because all these like what it sounds like to me is some sort of like vocal synthesizer, like a happening. Yeah. Whereas normal Game of Thrones is like strings. Like it's just strings and it's really dark. I think the voices are like this new music is representative of Alicent's religion. If it's like choir, like choral Oz happening, it slowly creeps into King's Landing. So when we get there in this scene and like the 7-star sept is up and all the Targaryen stuff is down, it's much bigger, it's more expansive, and they keep that music throughout the show. So I think I now seeing it realized I get it and I love it.
Yeah, it also has such a threatening energy to it. It feels like something bad is
this
going
is
to happen.
Very specific. You know what it reminds me of?
What?
The siren scene from Sinbad.
Okay.
The animated movie,
yeah,
you know, thing.
Yes.
That's what it reminded me of, and I was like, "Oh shit, I get it.
Yeah,
it's church."
That's really funny, and Sinbad's really good.
Oh yes, maybe we'll tackle that next.
Yeah, okay. So we have that theme. That's really smart. Now I'm gonna think about that later as we go through. So they arrive, and it's kind of this big entrance, this grand entrance. And Knight greets her. I thought this was like phenomenal storytelling because the Knight just said it's good to have you back. It's great to have you there or here with us. And just the genuineness in his voice. Again, this is what I mean by trusting the actors to tell the story. I immediately understood that he missed her and it's different.
Exactly. I don't know that person's name, but I know that relationship.
Yep. I know all I need to know. And I understand that we are in for a trip because something's happened.
Yeah.
And Rhaenyra was keeping that at bay. And I got all of that just from that one line.
Yeah.
So she basically realizes King's Landing has changed a lot. We go into the throne room and we see that 7-pointed star. I thought the shot of this was really cool. We're looking through the star.
Yeah. And we do get the line, like Rhaenyra says something like, "Oh, I would say I'm happy to be back, but I hardly recognize it," which is great. But I do like that we start with a nice shot, like where we're showing right off the bat and then the dialogue accompanies it, which was done very well.
And Emma Darcy said the cutest thing in the after episode. I really like when they have the actors speak about it. They were saying basically, they said a bit gaudy if you ask me, but they were talking about how this episode, actually I think this is one of the showrunners, felt like the episode was like, or the King's Landing was now a monastery.
Yes.
Instead of this like, sort of this Targaryen shrine, you had all these Targaryen art on the wall.
Emma Darcy said it was like a hospital. Right?
Yeah.
They
said it was basically the episode set in a hospice.
Yeah, that is cool. Those are such cool like ideas. That's really nice.
And I feel like you can tell the energy of this episode is like palpable.
It's
just
good.
Like sits on your chest. Like Viserys, we can get into this more when we actually see him, but this episode was heavy. Just like it would be if you're in a hospice. It was great. I think
it really,
hearing the actors speak after the episode, you really see that they know what they're doing. They understand these characters so well.
For sure.
So when they have all the tools they need, you just have to give them a chance to actually use those tools. It's very clear. Even the kids.
Yeah, I don't know. Anytime these kids are on screen, I love them. And anytime Viserys is on screen, I love him. And anytime anybody's on screen, I'm like, they're doing such a good job.
I know. So then we get to the small council meeting and Alicent really is just like running the show.
Yeah, it is so fun because when you're constantly aging the character, she almost looks like a different person. Like the way she like carries herself, she's like a little more like not hunched necessarily, but like a little more twisted, I guess. And like her face is a little more like just it's really nice. It's very subtle, but big work.
No, I wrote that. She looks older. It was great. It looks very, very subtle. And I think it's twofold. It's probably fantastic styling.
Yeah.
Right. They did some small things.
Her outfits.
Great.
Oh my goodness.
But it's just small things. So like her outfit goes up to her neck now and her hair has less volume. So like it just you subconsciously feel like that is older traits.
Yeah.
And then I also think it's phenomenal acting of just changing your physicality. And I mean, it was good. It was so subtle,
Yeah.
subtle, but it's so good.
I would say, like, everybody's doing a great job, we said, but I feel like Allison absolutely dominated this episode. Like, anytime she was on screen, she had my full attention.
Mhm. So then we have this meeting, and Beesbury is like, everyone's just annoyed. I thought that was just funny, like a little moment of humor where everyone's kind of just rolling their eyes and
Yes.
waiting on it. And they're discussing this idea of what they're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a short, I mean, it's not really like that important. We don't get a ton of information. We understand that there's like issues in the stepstones and things
Mhm.
like that. And I mean, that's the gist of it. They're just
Yeah.
discussing who should take the Driftwood throne.
Yeah, so far we've ran with the idea that the council meetings are not really the most interesting parts of the episodes, which
Yeah.
I can get behind. I hate to harp on it again, but I feel like it would have been a little more effective if we would have cut to the scene as they said the queen is ruling, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I just think the only problem is they had to get, this was the day of,
Them arriving. I get it.
Which
get
I
it.
do. I see exactly what you're saying, though.
But yeah, it's a scene. It's fine. It's not bad, but
Yeah.
it's whatever.
And then Allison leaves to greet the guest.
Mhm.
We meet one of the twins.
Yeah, this was another one. We said it earlier. If something is obvious in a way that's helpful, I don't mind it. I wish we would have alluded more that they're twins, because they
Yeah.
said like a line. I think
Well-
specifically she called him the wrong name. Either his name is Eric and she said Eric, or he's Eric and she said Eric.
Right.
One of that, right? And I think he just said the other person is my brother. And then she was like, sorry. And I know for a fact I did not catch that the first time.
Oh, I know for a fact I didn't either.
And I think the twin thing is just kind of, in the world of Game of Thrones, like kind of comical to me. I think
Yeah,
that's
I
funny.
think so too.
But two, if they're both essentially named Eric, I feel like just another line like, oh, Eric's my brother, I'm Eric.
Or just have them both there.
You know?
Just have both of them there.
Yeah. Like that would have been a fun little bit. Like
But
they're both
see what
walking
I
by her
mean?
side, you know?
Yeah, see what I mean by, so when I saw the twin this time, having seen this
Yes.
season and knowing where things are going, and having seen part of, I think, does it happen in season 2? Whenever it
Yeah,
happens.
season 2.
Yeah. So having seen that, I know how important those twins are and what's going to happen. So I was like, light up moment. Whoa, that's really cool. There
Exactly.
he is, like Easter egg, it almost feels like. But no, it's not an Easter egg. It's important to the plot. Y'all are setting foundations
Yeah.
for later. And I mean, it goes by so quick, you can barely catch it.
And it's, I mean, not that it's not a top 3 character in the show, like in
Mhm.
terms of moving the plot along, but this plot line does carry some weight, especially in
Yeah.
the second season. So a more official introduction scene would have been helpful,
Yeah.
just because I do feel like I didn't really know who these characters are until everybody had been talking as if we'd have them for a while. Like they just started saying, oh, the twins. And I'm like, who?
Yeah,
know?
really.
But again, small thing, but they like add up.
Yeah, I agree. So then Rhaenyra greets Viserys, who is very ill. And this was sad.
This was
very sad.
Anytime Viserys was on camera, I was physically upset. And that's a testament to a lot of things. I feel like this actor is like giving the performance of a lifetime in this episode specifically. Like I believe every breath, I believe every groan. I'm literally like getting emotional thinking about it a little bit.
Right. Did he get it? Was he nominated for this episode? This was phenomenal.
I
It was
know.
so genuine and realistic.
Yeah.
I felt like someone was there dying.
And
with me.
that mixed with the absolute phenomenal makeup prosthetics team.
And like I think effects as well,
Yeah.
like the cheek and things like that.
it
are
was
effects.
it was just amazing. Like to see in the show, like the dragons look nice, some of the CG like landscapes are very
Mhm.
well done, but to have such a close-up detailed human face look as good as that did, it was really, really fun to look at while
And-
also being very sad.
Yeah, and I think it was just clever because it was like gross, right? Like it's these open seeping wounds, but it's not so gross that you're like having to look between your fingers, because you see what
Yeah.
I'm saying, but it's just the right amount to make it as sad as possible.
Yeah, well, and I think that's exactly the point. I think it is exactly as far as it needs to go.
Mhm.
Like he doesn't look more gruesome than he needs to,
Mhm.
which this and Game of Thrones can both go overboard with the gruesomeness at times, but I feel like this was perfect amount, absolutely enough. I was so invested and cared so much about him every single scene.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think it also goes back to costuming. It was just very clever, everything they were doing.
Yeah.
And yeah, so this scene's just really sad. They had these nice close-up shots where you really got to see how Rhaenyra and Daemon felt about the situation.
Mhm.
They have a fire going, so there's smoke, which just
Yeah.
adds, and the light from the window, so it just adds sort of like a dynamic sense. Again, it kind of does feel like medicinal, hospice-y. Like it
Yeah.
feels very much that we are sitting
It's
by
very
someone's
good.
deathbed, you
There are a
know?
lot of like light colored sheets and blankets everywhere.
Yeah.
What is that? Like
Set
prop set
dressing.
design. Like
Yeah.
the crew went off
The
on this
crew did.
episode.
Yeah, they really did. That
Mhm.
plus the idea of fully changing the way King's Landing looks.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's just very sad. He says, it's been so long,
I
and my
know.
heart just like breaks.
Mhm.
And I thought it was kind of funny because Damon immediately just like gets into it.
Yeah.
He immediately
for
is like,
sure.
look, they're petitioning. We need to decide the succession of Driftmark and who's going to take the throne. And he just says, Allison and Otto take care of those things now.
Mhm.
And he kind of keeps like re-saying things and remembering things poorly.
Yeah, which again is just like super sad. It's very, very sad that he's trying his hardest just to like stay awake at
And
this
have a
point
conversation
with his brother, who's he banished 8 times and hasn't
Yes.
seen in years.
Well, you just know this character has so much love.
Mhm.
I'm a crier.
We're gonna
by
get
the
into
way.
it later
Like,
too.
I'm a crier.
I'm feeling it right now.
Like good art and good TV shows like move me. And so like I'm a crier. So like
it's just I feel like old men specifically get me too.
I know.
So this is
That's
both of
so
our
funny.
kryptonite right now.
That's so funny. So well, it's just like really sad because they
Yeah.
again, I feel like they trusted the actors. We didn't need a
Mhm.
line that said like, this is so sad. I didn't need that. I
Yeah.
didn't need Rhaenyra and Daemon to discuss it because I could see it on their faces and the looks they gave each
Mhm.
other.
And in the after episode, they talk about for all the Viserys scenes, they had like either multiple cameras or they did the same shot multiple times from all these different angles. So I feel like everybody really got to play around with how they were dealing with this grief,
Yeah.
you know? And I think it just shows really well because the emotional progression feels so natural. I
Yeah.
feel like this is by far the best emotional beginning, middle, end
Yeah.
of episode that I've seen from the show so far.
Because this first scene, you're not like sobbing, right? This first scene is really sad.
Yeah.
But like we still have so much more to
You know
go.
it's gonna get harsh, you know? And I didn't feel slight spoilers for like an hour from now. He does die at the end. And I feel like the first time I definitely didn't see him dying this episode. Like I feel like we would have gotten a little more time with him sick. So I
Yes.
think on the rewatch specifically, like again, if you're gonna tell a full story in an episode, this was the full story. Like this was
Yes.
his I think they even say it in the after episode, like this was his last supper. Like it was so
So
effective.
So good. Well, it just, yeah, no, you're so right. It gives him this beginning, middle, and end to his character. That's really good. It's very isolated on its own, but it still like goes with the rest of what's happened.
Yeah.
So then Rhaenyra and Daemon bring in their kids
Mhm.
and they introduce Viserys to them. And this was really sad too. So they introduce baby Aegon and then
Mhm.
baby Viserys, who's named after him. And he says like, that's name fit for a king. And it's just so sweet to see.
It's really good.
It's really good. It's just one that was sad on its own
Mm-hmm.
because you know Rhaenyra does love Viserys.
Absolutely.
And on top of that, he still like makes jokes.
Yes.
So I think that is also why the emotional impact of the episode was so high, because if you're just like at a 10 for how sad everything is, you just
Mm-hmm.
there's no contrast.
Yeah.
But they did such an amazing job of still making him this wonderful, sweet person
Mm-hmm.
that you understood sort of this like sunshine that he was all his life.
Exactly.
And it makes it that much sadder because we have a juxtaposition
Yeah.
with the sad. Anytime you have a light energy, it just makes the sad moments more emotionally impactful.
Exactly.
So when he's like, that's a name fit for a king, it's just like a joke and it's sweet and it just brings light to a really sad situation, which makes it more impacting.
Yeah. And I mean, that's another just a fundamental acting. Like you don't play into the drama of what's happening,
Yes,
right? Like
that's
if
so true.
you're on your deathbed as this like man who's trying to keep his family together and things, like no, you're not gonna like wallow in the pity of death. Like you're gonna try to be spirited and be who you always were, and it just makes it 10 times sadder.
It does. And so then Viserys like starts to feel a lot of pain and he takes some tea, and Damon starts smelling it, and like you're clearly kind of wondering what's happening.
Yeah, and at this point, if you don't know, it's Milk of the Poppy. I don't know what show you've been watching. I was thinking about this during the episode, actually. Do you think that Milk of the Poppy has... This is very off topic.
Okay.
Do you think Milk of the Poppy has, like, gone through variations? Or do you think it's been, like, somebody invented
No.
it and they were just like, this is the shit?
Yeah, it's tried and true.
Really?
Yeah.
Because I was like, what medicine have we had for, like, 150 years? You know?
Yeah.
Like, nobody's ever, like
teas, like chamomile.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's got to be 150 years old. So, like, that's what
I mean,
all
yeah,
milk
I
of
feel
the-
like tea's
just
like
a
thousands
tea.
of years old.
Well, yeah,
right?
yeah. But you see, like, in, like,
I just think it's funny because, like, literally aside from, like, poison, anytime anybody's drinking anything, I'm like, it's probably Milk of the Poppy.
Yeah,
you know?
that or wine.
Or wine, yeah.
no water here for me, please. So, okay, just this scene was just fantastic acting from every single person
Mhm.
on this scene. I
Yep.
think this scene, Matt Smith, so Damon, did not have a lot of dialogue in this whole episode, actually.
Yeah.
He just had a lot of sort of emotional looks,
Mhm.
and I could hear everything going on.
I feel
in
like
his
I
head.
liked Damon the most this episode.
Absolutely. I saw this love for his brother, but it was still, they still kept him Damon, right? So immediately
Yes.
he's going to go in and bring up the problem.
Mhm.
He's going to try to fix it because he's not a tactful person,
Exactly.
right? And so,
But it's neat because it's like, it's layered too, because it's
Yeah.
not just him doing something to piss Viserys off. Like, it's him, like, furthering Rhaenyra's claim. Like,
Yes.
he is the same, but he has grown, which is really cool.
And you just see that he loves his brother. It's really cool.
Yeah.
So then Allison is speaking with the handmaiden.
Can I say this is I think this is my favorite transition of the episode,
Okay.
because this is a Game of Thrones level
they do, I don't
transition.
remember.
So
I
what
didn't
they
write
do,
it
they
down.
end the last scene on Viserys, looking down on Viserys laying in bed as he, like, closes his eyes in weakness, and then we cut to looking up at Alicent, who is looking down at the
That's
handmaiden.
good.
So, like, total visual representation of the power within King's Landing right now. It is great. And you see him, like, after telling the joke, wheezing, and she is stone cold.
Yeah.
Like, I saw that and I was like, where was that in the first, like, oh.
So, yeah, that's good. Allison is talking with the handmaiden who is crying and shivering. And I think this is such a good example of you don't have to show something bad happening.
Mm-hmm.
Showing the reaction to it can be just as
For sure.
effective, if not more.
That's Greek theater, right?
Right. Actually, yeah, that's so true. So, because this handmaiden, Diana, it doesn't matter.
Tiana. It
Diana.
does matter.
I
Say
wrote it.
her
I
name.
specifically wrote it down. She's like just crying and
Yeah.
shivering and like
Mhm.
can't breathe. She looks so young. She literally looks like she's 12 years old. And basically, and yeah, Allison looks stone cold this whole
Mhm.
scene. And she's bringing him. Basically, we found out that the handmaiden was bringing him wine, and he like grabbed
Bring
her.
Aegon wine.
Yes, sorry, bringing Aegon wine. I didn't remember this scene, so I was like, "Oh,
Me neither.
Is she gonna be mean?" I was like, "Is she about to like
Mhm.
backhand this handmaiden kind of thing?" And she was sweet. She gives her a hug. She says it's not her fault, and she believes her. And then she flips and she starts saying like, basically, it's this
No.
long shot.
I believe you.
Right.
But nobody else will.
And it's this long shot zooming in, zooming in,
Mhm.
zooming in. And she sort of monologues about how, well, this person knows now and this person knows now. And what's going to happen? People might think you're lying about the king or trying to turn on the king and things like that.
Yeah.
And she basically fires her, gives her money, and gives her some tea.
Mm-hmm. Which is the plan B tea.
Basically, yeah. When she drinks it, it's just this shot of Alicent.
Yeah.
So, and you hear the handmaiden drinking it and gulping it, and it's just
Mhm.
this shot of
Which they've
Alicent.
done before. I forget. It's in the notes. Like, something was happening, but we just stayed on Alicent's face.
Oh, I know what it was.
What was it?
It was when Kristen Cole was confessing.
That's right. Oh my god.
That was a good scene. That was really good.
Yes. Okay.
And
same energy.
you say very much so. And I wrote, this is fucking crazy.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, it's crazy on so many levels. Because one, like, again, Alicent is in control in this moment. Like, there's no doubt in my mind she is the queen. Okay. Second, I feel like this was such a fun, creative way to introduce who Aegon is now.
Yeah.
Because we've had so much buildup, right? He's been like eyeing the maidens at various events, but he's just sort of been like that young kid who like
Yeah.
could really like couldn't care less about things.
Kind of a jerk. Yeah.
Yeah, but to introduce the new actor without him being in the scene was very cool. Because if like we don't know anything about new Aegon, except that he raped somebody.
Right.
You know, and that's strong.
Right. It tells you exactly who he is.
Yeah. And then going
Well-
into that next scene, we see him asleep in bed, which like again puts the pieces in my mind, because the first time we saw him,
Yeah.
or one of the first times, he's like just in his room or whatever hanging out. So like
Yeah.
visually the same, but with this dark deed overhead. Like I just feel like it was a fun, creative way to introduce this character.
I agree.
Again.
Yeah, because the sole purpose of this scene doesn't really come back ever again.
Mhm.
The sole purpose was to explain who this character was, which, yeah, I thought that was phenomenal. And it also just goes to show, again, it's just kind of basics.
Yeah.
It's basics, and then you put some sort of creative twist on it. And it just showed so much about this person.
Mhm.
And you're right, because the last time we saw this character, when we first met the other Aegon, like 2 episodes ago,
Yeah.
Alicent like throws him on the bed, and he's like naked with because remember he was like masturbating out the window,
Yeah.
and he's like got the sheet covering him, and she's like reprimanding him. So it's 1 for 1, almost the same.
Yeah.
We've just developed it more, and it calls it back to, we remember now, and those are really smart
There's good
ways.
visual similarities.
Yes, and it helps us as an audience remember.
Yeah, because I remember the first time watching through it, I felt like, not that it needs to, like I get it, you're like casting people, but like the younger Aegon and this guy now, I feel like they just don't look very similar.
Yeah, it's weird because they almost look the same age.
Yeah.
You know, they
And
don't
I
look much
feel like
different.
younger Aegon looks like current Aemond a lot more than he looks like current Aegon.
Yes.
Which
yeah,
was
yeah.
just like, to me, the first time I was like, who is anyone? You know? So looking back on it, again, binging helps a lot,
Yeah.
but that was, the visual of that was helpful.
Also going back to, I know who Aegon is now.
Yes.
So because I know, I've seen this, I've read parts of the things like that, right?
Mhm.
I know who Aegon is. So when we meet younger Aegon, I'm not meeting younger Aegon. I'm seeing how he looked when he was younger.
Yeah.
And I just think that is nuanced but different. So
Mhm.
yeah, Aegon's sleeping. He absolutely does not care. And she goes, like, how could you do this, especially on a day like today? And he goes, why? What is today? Doesn't even care, doesn't even
Yeah.
know. Which is so funny, because if they essentially get Rhaenyra off the throne, it's him.
Yeah.
And he has no interest in this,
Mm-hmm.
even a little bit. And she straight up slaps him and says, you are no son of mine.
Yeah, it's hardcore. And again, like, I don't think they mean it to play comedically. I think it does play comedically, but not in a bad way.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
After the slap, Helena walks in.
Well, he says, I did not ask for her. I didn't
That's
ask
right,
for
that's
this.
right,
And
sorry.
I tried hard, but it'll never be enough. And I'm kind of like, that on itself is kind of funny, because
Yeah.
it's like, what have you tried hard to do, Aegon?
It's true, yeah.
It's just so like.
And it's like, I believe you, but I believe you because you're like a rich Nepo baby who thinks
Yeah.
you're doing something,
well,
you know?
no, you're just so self-centered that you can only see, like,
Exactly.
I tried so hard. And
Yeah.
it's poor little prince me. It's not enough. I get to do whatever I want, no consequences.
Yeah.
My mom might get mad at me once or
Mhm.
twice.
But again, I think it's funny because the character is realized. Like, the
Yeah.
actor is doing a good job
Well,
in who this person
he
is. Like,
fully
I know
believes
this
it.
guy.
He believes it. He believes everything he's
Yeah.
saying. To him, that is the 100% truth.
Mhm.
And that's where you get that sort of like unreliable narrator feeling from it.
Yeah.
But so yeah, then Helena walks in, and I don't remember what she says.
She says something other. I think she's like
Simple.
commenting on something. But what was funny to me is, like, literally right after this slap confession, she just, like, Allison goes over and just hugs her.
I
And I'm
know.
like, damn.
It's so funny. In a good way, in a good way.
Yeah, we're around season 7 of rewatching Game of Thrones by the time of recording this, and there's an episode where Cersei's talking to someone about like having children, and she's like, we shouldn't have favorites, but you know,
Marcella was
we're
mine,
only
yeah.
human, yeah. And that just flashed in my mind. I was like, Allison has a favorite, and I think she wants everyone to know. You know?
That's so funny. So then Rhaenyra and Daemon and Alicent are speaking. And so this episode does that, where we have characters, the episode before did this a lot, where we have
Mhm.
characters, or 2 episodes before, that we're following and going into the next scene.
Yeah.
But the way the pacing is it doesn't feel unnatural.
No. Yeah.
And it's because things are fast moving, but also it's because, we're going to see this in a little bit, but it's because the scene lengths are varied. So you'll
They're
have
varied,
you'll have
yeah.
a short scene and a longer scene, and then a short scene and a longer scene, a long scene, a short scene, right?
Mhm.
They're varied. So when you follow those characters, it doesn't feel as odd, because it doesn't feel like almost like the exact same amount of time is passing as if I was in real life there.
Yeah.
And in this, it doesn't feel that way. It feels like I'm skipping somewhere to some next point in the episode.
Yeah, I feel like they do a good job of that. And I also feel like almost on the other side of the spectrum, they've done a good job of grouping the scenes this episode.
Yeah.
Like what we were just talking about, Alicent talking to Diana, transitioning to her talking with her kids. Like that reads as one scene in my mind.
Yes, me too.
Which again helps that pacing tremendously.
Yeah. So then we're here with Rhaenyra, Daemon, and Alicent, and I wrote snarky comments already.
Yeah, I literally have like 4 words for the scene because I was just watching it. I was having so much fun.
Oh my gosh. So Daemon is basically just implying that Alicent's the one ruling and she's the one calling the shots, and Alicent is like, well, I'm just enacting the king's guidance. And it's so funny to see the growth of this character.
Yeah.
And where she was just like a few episodes ago. I just think it's fun. And Rhaenyra and Daemon basically imply that they're drugging him purposely so that way they can do what they want. And they ask about why all this new religious scenery and the emblems of the 7 are all over the place, and why the Targaryen stuff is down. Was that Viserys who wanted that to happen, basically? And they say, well, then who's going to pass judgment on us tomorrow? And
she shows me.
She says, myself in the hand of the King Otto Hightower.
Yeah.
And then she gives him one of these.
Yeah, the little smile.
Soft
at the
smile.
End, it's crazy. Well, because it's so fun. Because yeah, like what are you gonna do? She's a queen, right?
Right.
And
Otto's the hand.
To have her fully just use all this power, like she's so efficient with it. Because she's not even saying anything like, I could have you expelled and for this slander. She's like, see you tomorrow.
Yeah,
you know,
like well, she literally goes, I won.
It is, and then she leaves. She walks out. It is so powerful.
It is, and you just know, everything you need to know about this. I know the power dynamic at play.
And it's again shown very well through visuals, the angles, lighting, things like that. Like I just believe it.
Yeah.
Like again, talking about the last episode, we're sort of in the same world of roles. It's been some time, but like everybody was sort of doing their thing to a lesser extent the last episode. And I feel like this episode, all of the technical elements are helping the story being told so much cleaner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's also cool because last episode, Otto and Alicent were basically like, okay, we're going to play this ugly game together. So it feels like this. Alicent has always pretended to be someone else almost. That's what you have like in the beginning when she was like holding her nails and like things like that.
Yeah.
She's always pretending to be this like docile, sweet character who is going to, through sweet words and a soft voice, convince Viserys how to do something.
Yeah.
And then Viserys sees through that facade because Rhaenyra helped him, which made Alicent even more angry. And then we saw, once he did see through it, she still tries to keep that up.
Yeah.
She's still trying to play this game. And this episode, after basically she tried to stab a child and cut his eye out, basically like the facade's gone. You can't pretend after that.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where we ended. And it's really nice to see like that's gone. She's not even trying.
Yeah.
She's not trying to pretend she's someone who she's not. Even with Viserys now at this point, there is no wall up. This is Alicent.
For sure.
And it was really cool to see the natural progression of that.
I agree. So it's just like, it's a lot of good payoff happening.
And good dialogue.
Good dialogue. It's great.
So then we're outside in the training area and Jace and Luke are being real cute. And they're like, look at this. I remember this when we were kids.
Literally the cutest children.
Literally so cute. And Aemond and Sir Kristen Cole are basically training. And Aemond is like dodging and kind of like just killing it.
Yeah,
and,
again, like your basics. Like what is he? He's good at swords, right? So show him fighting. We know the morality is gray, but we know that Kristen is a warrior. He's seen war, right? So we can infer that even in the sparring match, like it takes some skill to do what we're watching, right?
Yeah.
Which is great. Like, because I now know that he's fierce. He's good with weapons. He's probably the strongest person in a room at any given time.
Yeah.
That's great. Like, and again, not a single word was said.
Yes.
It's great.
Yeah. Well, and we got to see the reactions of Jace and Luke be terrified, honestly.
Absolutely.
And he calls them out. Aemond calls them out.
He does.
It's really good. Again, I hate to say it, but that's basics.
It's basic.
Because when you tell me what's the one thing I need to know about this character, that he's a good fighter and he's petty.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw that because you showed me him fighting, and he ends the fight by being petty.
Exactly, yeah.
Right? And the same thing with Aegon, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do I need to know about him? Just tell me in 2 words what I need to know about him.
Exactly.
Right? He's irresponsible and he's a bad person.
It's very
See
good.
what I mean? So when you do that, when you boil it down to just what do you want to tell in simplest terms, now do exactly that. That's all. That's what they did this episode, and it was so effective.
Good. And I do think, as these characters get older, they have more pronounced characteristics, right? But I absolutely agree. Like, the visual showing of who these people are is so much more interesting and so much more easy to follow in this medium than just having somebody explain it or say that I'm this.
That's such a good point, because when there's so much to remember, so many names to remember, so many people, so many things that sound the same in so many places, I'm going to remember a scene where someone was fighting a lot more than one line where someone said he's a good fighter.
Exactly.
And that's why show don't tell makes a lot more sense.
Exactly. Like, because I feel like all 4 of them are super, super established. Jace from the beginning learning Valyrian because he's going to be king one day, right?
And he's the responsible one.
Exactly.
And so it also gives us as the audience someone to be like, no, he should be king.
Yeah. Luke is docile. He wants to just like chill out on Driftmark. Doesn't want anything, right? And then we just talked about Aegon and Aemond, right? Like, it is crazy to me and how few words and how little minutes I know exactly who these kids are. Yeah. Again, after they've aged twice, right? It's great.
So then Vaemond enters King's Landing. It's very grand, and he goes to talk to Otto and Alicent. And Alicent, it's cool because you see this like tiny little tug for Rhaenyra sometimes. Where, because she never says anything like, I fucking hate Rhaenyra, right? She's never like, she sometimes will say some bad things about her. Yeah. But she never, it's always backed by some sort of like religious thing or, right? There's always something else behind it. And you could see that she had like some doubts in her head. At least that's what I got.
I agree. Yeah. I think, again, Alicent's just a really fun, like complex character. Like, she's deeply hypocritical, but in her mind, her moral compass is very strong. So it's fun to see her just interact with scenes that sort of live in the gray area. Like, they were friends, but she did try to cut her son's eye, like it's just, it's great. I also feel like, again, Vaemond is doing a fantastic job this episode. He gets a lot of strong power commanding the camera, even next to Alicent, which is impressive.
Well, it's also cool because his character was written to sort of just be angry the whole episode and sort of demanding. And so for him to have such nuance in his lines and to see his motivation, because I felt like I saw his motivation, and the dialogue was great that they gave him. It was not to say it wasn't good. That's just hard to sort of play one note for an entire episode. And I think he did a really good job.
No, it's really fun when your antagonist isn't necessarily a villain. Yeah. Like, if this were focused on him, he would be the good guy, right?
Well, because he's right.
Exactly.
He's so justified in what he's saying. I mean, I would be pretty upset if my line was, and maybe he does want to be the actual ruler of Driftmark.
But that's human, right? Like, it's
just inconsequential. It doesn't matter because he's right. They are not.
Yeah, it's
hate
cool.
to say it,
like,
but
you cheering for Rhaenyra, you want everything to work out, but like, you can't hate him. Yeah,
So then we get to Rhaenys at the Godswood, and Rhaenyra walks in, and we have sort of like an awkward sort of encounter. It's cool that they're at the Godswood, and Rhaenys is being very complimentary of Rhaenys and saying that she raised Baela really well, and the daughter Rhaena is with them, and they send her away. So those are just like subtle ways for us to remember who those two characters are, just by naming them. It's all it takes. Just give me a name, right? We didn't get that the other episode. Rhaenyra starts talking about, she realizes why Rhaenys is actually there, and they're kind of, I put that they were beefing about Laenor. And thanks.
It's another like power scene. Like, for the first half, like, Rhaenys doesn't really say a whole lot. But she's winning, you know?
Oh, she is. Well, Rhaenyra looks like she's scrambling.
I know. Also, this is another sort of off topic. What she was wearing looked really good. Like
Rhaenyra or Rhaenys?
Rhaenyra, like the red fabricy thing. Like I just
Yeah.
really liked it.
No, the costumes were good this episode.
Mhm.
They're really good.
I loved what Rhaenys was wearing too, but that really struck me because that's not what Rhaenyra usually wears. But I liked it.
Yeah. Well, I think they're trying to really play up like Targaryen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're upset. Rhaenys truly thinks that they had Laenor killed, even though Rhaenyra
Mhm.
like promises that that's not true.
Yeah. Which is also a lie. She said she didn't conspire for the death. And like, granted, we know he's not dead, but like, it was her plot, you know?
Yeah, he's just not dead though.
Exactly.
So Rhaenyra, I think this was a great idea. She offers her 2 sons to marry Rhaenys' granddaughters.
That was such a good idea. In real life, I said, "Oh shit, that's a great idea."
Yeah, fixes everything.
Like notes down. I was like, "Wait a minute."
Yeah. No, it does, because now the line continues.
Everything works out perfect.
Everything works out perfect. And Rhaenys says basically, is that's a smart offer, or is it a desperate one?
Mm-hmm.
And Rhaenyra says, doesn't matter, right? Because it doesn't, because it's a good offer.
Yeah.
And I do think this was fun back and forth dialogue. And basically she says, no, it doesn't. But tomorrow the High Towers are going to land their first blow, and you'll be on your knees.
Yeah, for sure. It's strong. Like
it's strong.
I feel like this is, in the grand scheme of the episode, this isn't like my favorite scene or anything,
Yeah.
but this is definitely the best scene in an earlier episode for sure.
Yeah, that's
so just
true.
like I think it says a lot about the overall just quality and how they just knocked it out of the park this episode.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you leave that scene thinking, oh no, right? Like, what's going to happen?
Oh, geez.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
What's Rhaenyra going to do?
Mm-hmm.
So then we get to Rhaenyra is in Viserys's room,
Mm-hmm.
and he thinks it's Alicent, which this is all great setting up.
Very good
He thinks it's
foreshadowing.
Alicent. She says, no, it's Rhaenyra.
It's
right?
actually very, very smart.
It's honestly genius. Well, because, like, of course he's going to think it's Alicent. Rhaenyra never comes to see him, right? It's been literally years. Alicent, I'm sure, is at his bedside all the time, making sure he's okay, right?
Well, and again, just talking about the pacing, like this whole arc of him being near death is 1 episode long. So, like, to establish that he's so gone that he's like confusing people and just sort of saying words, I think they show it the absolute perfect amount. Like, not a second more, a second less. So by the time the big thing at the end, which we'll talk about later, does happen, I'm fully invested. I'm like, yeah, I get it. Absolutely.
I believe it, because I remember being like, oh, that's kind of stupid the first time I watched it.
Yeah, well, we'll get to it, but it's like that's the crux of like what's really kicks off the entire war. And for it to be, honestly, the first time around, I was like, this is dumb.
Well, I think it just goes back to the moments like that aren't effective because I don't know who's who.
Mm-hmm.
So if I don't know who's who, then I don't understand what's important and what's
Exactly.
not. So now that I've watched it again, I don't know. I'd be interested to see or just hear what other people think.
Yeah.
Because just for me watching it back, I actually understand it.
Yeah, and I think what's really cool is we've been putting out episodes, and we've actually been getting a lot of like comments and discussions on various social medias, and a lot of people are coming at it from the angle like, oh, the book did this, or oh, if you read the book, and I get it, right? Like you're adapting something, but I think both of us are very firm believers. If you're going to adapt something, it needs to stand on its own, right? And again, I don't know if the confusion is entirely their fault, but it is something they need to deal with.
Yeah.
I feel like we've been saying binging the series circumvents a lot of that confusion. Watching through it a second time is definitely very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's just so much information to get through, so many characters to meet. And approaching it from the idea that someone should not have to read 500 pages of a book to enjoy a show is where we're sort of coming at this with, you know?
Something else, I think this episode is a really good example of how we've been saying the book is so much shorter. This is sort of a rare occurrence where the book is such a short amount of material to cover. I think this was a fantastic use of filling in the blanks, you know?
Okay.
So Viserys isn't sick like this in the books. So,
Yeah.
and seeing him being sick added so much more to the character
That's
and
true.
obviously like filled out the time.
I completely forget that he's not sick in
Right?
this book. It is such a pivotal like point of the show for me. That's crazy. Yeah. Well done.
Or just like how we understand Aegon's character and Aemon's character. I just think this was a really good way that they took the books
Mhm.
and decided in their own way they were going to expand it. I think they actually succeeded with that in this episode.
Fully
It didn't
agree.
just feel like they were filling time.
Yeah. Everything was important.
Yeah. So back to this scene. Yeah, they do a wonderful job. He thinks it's Alicent, which calls back to the end. And she's in there. He corrects her and says it's Rhaenyra. Or she corrects him and says it's Rhaenyra. And she starts asking about the Song of Ice and Fire and basically like, you divided the realm by naming me heir and it's too heavy. And basically like she wants him to stand up for her.
Yeah.
She wants him to help her and that this was basically like you're doing and you need to defend me and her children. And it's just very sad. He's just like wheezing.
Yeah. No, it's very well done. I think my biggest gripe is it just the prophecy talk comes a little out of left field for me. And I know the episode before this one with the stabbing, I guess we were supposed to see that Rhaenyra saw into
I don't think
the
we were. I
flames.
feel like that's I feel like that's just can't be true.
Just because the last time we talked about it, I feel like Rhaenyra isn't really fully bought into the prophecy. Like I feel like in her mind it's just something that her dad cares a lot about.
Well, she says that later.
Yeah.
In the series.
So I feel like it's weird that she would come to him with like, am I really the chosen one? Rather than just like, are you really who you want me to be to lead? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Didn't take away from the scene. I thought it was a strong scene. I just thought the weight of the prophecy was a little odd just because we haven't really talked about it since it was introduced, really.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it needs to be set up so later on does feel more natural, which I think it does do that.
I agree.
I just think like sprinkling it in through a couple episodes before would have been helpful.
I think maybe what it is that the other episodes, it also comes out of left field a little bit. It feels very much like, and here's a prophecy to talk about.
Yeah.
It didn't feel ingrained enough into his character, I think, into Viserys' character. So when it does need to come out of left field, like I do feel like this was sort of how that scene could go. It felt to me like Rhaenyra was using this prophecy to discuss the issue. It wasn't just the prophecy. It was more nuanced than that. So when it does come out in sort of this like left field kind of way,
yeah,
it just feels like we're doing the same thing. Whereas if it wouldn't have been that way before, this would have felt fine.
Yeah.
That's kind of my opinion.
That makes sense.
The only other thing I want to talk about is he says my only child to her.
Yeah.
That was crazy. And I don't necessarily feel like that has anything to do with him not thinking he has other children.
I think it has everything to do with just how deeply he was in love with Emma.
Yeah.
You know, because even at the very end, his like last dying words are my love, which to me I fully see like he sees Emma like as he passes on, right? Which again, like I'm literally gonna start crying. I think that's what it sort of means, especially like knowing how about family Viserys is. I think that's what I'm taking away from it, and it's extremely powerful.
Well, no, I agree, and I think that it's just a definitive moment where we see he never really considered those kids his children.
Yeah, and no ill will. Like he loves them, obviously.
Yes.
Like he shows time and time again that he is there for his family, but obviously the three of them, him, Emma, and Rhaenyra, like that's very special to him. Yeah. Right.
I mean, last episode, he called Alicent Emma.
Exactly.
Right.
And I just think it's really powerful, right? Because like as you're going to the end of your life, you're like sort of reliving the most powerful emotional points. And I think that's great that Emma just keeps being brought up in this idea of family to him is so strong, and it plays so well. And the actor absolutely knocks it out of the park.
He kills it so much that you forget he kills it. Do you know what I mean?
Honestly, I forget he's an actor.
That's what I mean, right? Like because I'll be like, man, they're doing such a good job acting this.
Yeah.
And I wrote down in the earlier scene, like Matt Smith and Emma Darcy are killing this
Yeah.
scene. And I was like, oh my gosh, wait, he's acting too. Like what? He's phenomenal.
That's the difference. I'm like, wow, Matt Smith did this. I'm like, oh no, Viserys is sick.
Right. I don't see him as an actor. That is Viserys, and he is dying. It's so good.
It's so, honestly, it's, oh, y'all.
It's really well done. So Viserys is then being treated by the Maesters, and Otto is there. Otto, again, I think it's cool Otto doesn't talk a lot. This idea that he's just not a man of many words.
Yeah.
And he's going to just choose very specifically when he speaks, I think is a great character choice. And he says, like, we're going to dine as a family tonight. And Otto corrects him and is like, well, it's the morning. And he's like, tonight. And I'm like, that's so sad to know that people feel like you are out of your mind.
Yeah. Like
just really sad.
You're already, yeah, everybody just assumes you have like dementia.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very sad. I think it played really well though.
Because I don't think it's that he has I don't think it's that he's really forgetting. I think he's just so confused because he's on so many drugs.
Yeah.
You know, it's really not that he is like out of his mind kind of thing.
Yeah, it is sad.
I thought they did a really good job the way he looks, him being like just so small and skinny and just like in so much pain.
And again, I don't think it's too vulgar, right? Because like they could make this really gross. They could make this absolutely disgusting. And I think that would have been the wrong move. Because you still like, even looking at his absolute worst, I love Viserys to death. Right. Right. And it is just every alteration they make, everything that happens just makes it more sad and pronounced and strong. And again, just like absolute props to everyone who made that visual happen because it was flawless. Yeah.
And so Otto brings milk of the poppy and Viserys basically says no.
Yeah.
He wants to arrange the supper. You're like, okay, cool. So then we cut to Otto in front of the court to hear the petitions for Driftmark.
This, I don't think adds a lot to the story, but they have this, it starts overhead, this like dolly pan shot of the Iron Throne. And the Iron Throne just looks badass. It looks cool as hell.
And that's what we mean by like creativity. Yeah. So creativity with your shots. If you want the Iron Throne to look grand, do something to make it look that way.
Even though it may not like signal to any specific thing happening, like immediately I'm like, power, victory, sharp.
And Otto is the one that has it.
You know?
Yes.
And creative, fun, good.
Interesting. Keeps me entertained. So then Vaemond basically gives his speech about why he should be the heir of Driftmark. And he talks about how like true blood runs through his veins, and then Rhaenyra interrupts him. And you can tell that you just basically see the desperation. Yeah. This character is very desperate, and they did a great job of showing that. And she says that her sons are true, and if you cared about the Valyrian line, then you would let the true heirs take it, and it's your ambition. And Alicent cuts Rhaenyra off. And it just, again, it's this power dynamic where you feel like all three people are against Rhaenyra right now, and Rhaenyra is basically alone. It's good. And I feel like the writing of the dialogue also helps that as well. I think Vaemond's speech is, again, that sort of like heightened poetry, very regal. Like he knows he has the upper hand. He does. Then Rhaenyra comes in with this sort of just blunt, you're a liar. And then Alicent, who doesn't need to prove anything to anyone, says, shut up. Yeah, you know? Exactly. Like it is such a succinct passing of the like focus. I really loved it. Yeah. And then Vaemond turns to Rhaenyra and says, if I cut my veins, you wouldn't even recognize this Valyrian blood. And he talks about how it's bloodlines, not ambition. And you're kind of like he got her, right? True. Like it's looking bad. Tension. Yeah, it's very tense. And well, you just see how like much this means to him, and he's not backing down. Yeah. So then it's Rhaenyra's turn, and she kind of just like starts speaking, and you're like, oh. And then the throne room, the doors open, and in walks Viserys. He's got his mask and his cane, and he's got his crown on his head. Yeah. And you're just like, the day is saved. Yeah. This was another one where, again, I'm sure their mind wasn't, this is going to make the people laugh. But I think in a very good way. It takes Viserys like 10 minutes to get to that throne, right? And on it, like, obviously that's played. But they play this
ungodly triumphant music for the entire time, which just had me cackling. Like I was so with it. Like,
Yeah.
this is not an insult in any way, but every like little hobble,
I know.
the cane, and then you just hear ba-da-da-dum, ba-da-da-da-da-da, and you're like, let's go.
Well, no, he opens those doors because I didn't remember what happened.
Yeah.
He opened those doors and I dead ass almost started. I dead ass almost stood up and started clapping for this fictional character because I was like, yeah, you did it. Well, and I think the idea of it taking him so long, I never felt like it was like too long.
No, well, that's the crazy part because I'm like, I should be so bored. Like, it is just watching this old man struggle to walk a straight line, but I'm in it.
They did a few things during it. One, it taking that long shows you how much he is pushing himself for Rhaenyra.
For sure.
And I have so many things to say.
Yeah. Well, I was in my mind, I was going through like how you could do the scene differently and just get different effects, right?
Yeah.
Like, how would it feel if there was just no music at all? If it was silently just the cracking of the cane, right? That'd be such a different
approach,
dramatic feel to it. I loved the music. I loved he gets up to Otto and the music like sort of comes to we're like, okay, he's sort of at the throne. It settles down a little bit. He turns, he coughs, he says, I will sit the throne today. And then you hear a ba-da-da again, and you're like, oh my God.
Well, and I think what it is they've done such a good job before that we sort of, we're going to go along with the crazy. We're going to go along when it's heightened, when it's over the top, when it borders on cheesy. It's not cheesy because we believe it, right? And that's what's crazy about storytelling is that the line is so fine.
Exactly.
And if this episode, if the acting was just any worse, if not to say
anything
it's bad,
was out
but
of place, this would be the funniest scene of the entire show.
Exactly, but it wasn't. Everything
but
was
instead
right.
I'm laughing because if I'm not laughing, I'm going to start crying because I'm so proud and
so
happy.
So, and then this gets me. One, to like continue on with how grand this scene is. You have this almost slow-mo shot of backlit Rhaenyra.
Yeah.
Like looking like this savior has come to her, right? It's like an angel has blessed her, right? It's so over the top, but it's great because what we're doing is over the top.
Yeah.
The
I know
story
exactly
being
how
told.
she's feeling.
Right. And then this really got me.
Shit.
So he stumbles a little bit.
Yeah.
And like someone tries to help him and he's like, I've got this.
This is after Otto was like around him and he says, I'll do it myself.
Yeah. And he says,
here we go.
No, he says, I'm fine. And then he drops his crown off his head and someone goes to help him pick it up. And he says, I said, I'm fine. And you turn around and Daemon's holding the crown. It's Daemon. And then he lets Daemon help him up. And then so Daemon puts the crown on him.
It's so good. And it's so good on so many levels. Because at the end of the day, this is benefiting Daemon. That's why he's doing this. But
you think so?
Viserys' little heart is so absolute. Like, in his mind, he's like, my brother loves me again. Like,
well,
it's just.
I also think I think they did a really good job of. Daemon did not have barely any lines this whole episode. But you saw that it did sadden him to see his brother this way. I agree, yeah.
And I don't think it's totally selfish that he was doing this. But it's still like talking earlier about Daemon is still the same person, right? Like he is on this mission for him and he is helping his brother for this mission. You know what I'm saying? Like it fuses together perfectly.
And I think you see a lot of these looks, this character feels like regret, right? I think he regrets probably... I mean, would you see someone you love looking that bad and die and you know it's the end, right? The regret you feel has to be so heavy on you. And I think I think that was conveyed so clearly without any dialogue. Yeah. And it was just very strong to see because they don't get the rest of these characters. Viserys and Daemon do not get a coming together moment of like, I've missed you, brother. We are together again. I'm sorry for the moments where we weren't, right? They don't get that. Yeah. And they don't need it because we got this. And I think that in comparison to the funeral episode where Viserys tries to reconcile with Daemon at the funeral and it wasn't very strong. Nothing was learned. The scene wasn't great. Yeah. A scene like this where we have no dialogue almost and it just seems very much like, okay, they're a team again.
Yeah, and I do think this scene builds off what has been established. Like those scenes previous weren't as strong, but knowing that Viserys' mission from day one is to unite family,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Having Daemon make the move with all that already in our minds just plays. It's so good.
So it's so good because every character needs some sort of arc. They need to change, right? In usually like a season or throughout the seasons, right? Every character has to have a change and an arc. And you saw this arc for both of them be completed in this moment, which was fantastic. I thought about this a lot because in this episode, I love the character of Daemon. Love the character. I think part of that is because I also love the character of Viserys. And it's crazy to me that they did that character so poorly in the earlier episodes.
Well, I'm wondering if it's a focus issue because they start the series off and it's very clear that Daemon is the antagonist.
Yeah.
And right now he's sort of backseating the series. Like it's very clearly not really about him. But I'm wondering if that is where the role is shining the most. Because Daemon is an interesting character, right? You know, he's always doing something chaotic. He's very selfish about what he's doing. And I just don't know if that plays super well as the main antagonist, right?
Yeah.
Because he's never truly against anybody on his family, right?
Yeah.
He's just a little selfish. So having him in somebody's corner, but still sort of a loose cannon, I feel like is a much more interesting spot to be in.
Here's what I think it is.
Okay.
I think when you have someone that is supposed to be redeemable, a character that is supposed to kind of start as the villain and then change, you have to give them a reason why they are the villain. So let's think of like other classic villains or other classic bad characters, right? Like Zuko, Avatar from The Last Airbender, right? Like he is a villain in the first season specifically because he wants to prove himself, right? So he's got this crazy strong reason, right? And like you can think of all these other characters. Why, if they're going to change and become a good guy, because here's the thing, he starts as the villain, right? He really does. And in the end, he's Team Black and we want Daemon to win. You've got to have some sort of relatable cause to why he's acting that way. Yeah. And if that's that he's always been looked down on or something, right? That his parents never something about him, right? I don't know what it would be. Or maybe it's that Otto just truly is like awful to him and hates him. And he's really just trying to prove himself better and he's just making the wrong choices. See what I'm saying? Yeah. I think that is what he needed. He needed another layer to the character and he didn't have that. Gotcha. Or another idea is a lot of the time, so you want a character to start as a villain and then become a good guy, you give them a bigger villain. Yeah. That is partnered with them. So you're always rooting for Daemon because he's against some other villain. And maybe that was what the Stepstones were supposed to be and it was just handled so poorly. Maybe. But I think he just needed a character see what I mean?
Yeah,
there
the
needed
development
to be more.
is happening now.
Okay, so this is kind of a silly example, but I think it's a good point. How I Met Your Mother.
Okay.
Which is, it's kind of silly, but I think people will get it.
Yeah, sure.
So Barney is a jerk. He's an absolute asshole. Like, if you didn't like his character, the things he would say, you would just, like, turn it off. Yeah. Because it's so disgusting. But they do such a good job of, it's clear the reason he's acting that way is because he's so unbelievably insecure on the inside that he's acting that way out of that insecurity. So now we have a level of emotional connection to him.
That's a good point.
And I feel guilty for him. I feel almost pity for this character. So when he says that and when he says these awful things about women and he does these really awful things and even really selfish things to his friends, I forgive it because I feel bad for him. Right? And so if you gave Daemon something, it doesn't have to be that. It's not one for one that character, but if you gave him some sort of reason behind it, I just think I would have loved his character from the beginning. And I'm not a whole season in before I love his character.
No, that makes a lot of sense.
I know that was a lot. Okay.
It was good though.
So Viserys sits the throne and he basically like puts everything right. He's like, I don't understand this. Why are we having this? I've already said this is how it is. They're legitimate. And then he says the only person that could bring any sort of help to this would be Princess Rhaenys. And she says, I don't even know what she says.
That alone, just like power. It's so good. It's because you're like, you walk in and you're like, oh my God, he's here. And then he's like, the only person who has anything to say is Rainey's. And you're like, oh shit.
Well, because you don't know what she's going to do.
Well, and you're showing everybody and everyone is just pissed off. Like Allison is pissed off. Otto's like, motherfucker, right?
Right. And you kind of are like, what's she going to say? What's she going to say? And she says, well, Corliss, she says the exact truth.
Yeah.
She doesn't even, she could have lied. She could have said whatever she
Mhm.
wanted. And I just think it's really cool to where a scene feels like the tension is over.
Yes.
It feels like we know who's won. They continue that tension on and they set it up from before. And it was just really clever. You don't know what she's going to say.
And I want to sort of say this now before I forget it. I feel like the tension of this scene carries on into the last scene of this episode. Like from this courtroom scene on, their ability to keep me engaged and keep the tensions high throughout everything that happens, even though we do have like resolutions and other things happen, it is masterfully done.
Yeah.
I feel.
I agree. So then Rainey's says that Corliss wanted Lucerys to take the throne.
Mm-hmm. And she's saying it with a little half smile like she gave to Rhaenyra.
It was good. Well, even when Viserys was like the only person who's Rainey's, you saw this like little like perk up like
cousin,
like,
yeah.
okay, I can do this, right? It was just very subtle but so good. And she takes Rhaenyra's offer to marry her sons to or her granddaughters to Rhaenyra's sons.
Yep.
And it's real cute because Jace is kind of like, oh, like
I know they all like each other. It's
I know
adorable.
it was really cute, and Rhaenyra's like gives a little like kind of side smile to Jace. It was very sweet. And Otto and Allison look fucked. They look pissed.
They're big L for Team Black on that
or
one.
Team
or
Green.
Team Green. Big L for Team Green.
Yeah. And Vaymond starts getting heated and he says, you break the law and centuries old traditions and basically starts saying like Viserys knows nothing of this. Like you are not blah, blah, blah.
Well, this was the other one. You're like, oh yes, we won. And then he's literally like, King, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Right. And I'm immediately like,
back
again.
into it. We're tense again. Yeah. And he says, I will not allow it. And Viserys goes, allow it. Right? It's just good.
He's like, allow it. Who are you, some second son of some island? And I'm like, oh my God, go off.
And then Vaymond goes, this dialogue is so good.
It's very
and then then Vaymond goes, that is no true Valyrian and no nephew of mine. And he points to Lucerys. And poor little Lucerys, who's the cutest little boy. Cutest little boy is, it looks so sad. He said that. Which, like, this kid had you don't have to do that. Mm-hmm. So at this point, right?
It's not his fault.
It's not his fault. So they're doing a good job of justifying, because he's about to die, right? They're doing a good job of justifying his death where you don't really feel sad for him, right? In a good way. And I think that was smart by sort of making him come out in this aggressive way, in this very angry to him pointing the finger and insulting these people we care about. Yeah. It was just smart.
Well, it's so logical after that. Like, he's just got to go. Right. The trajectory of the show is not going to hang with him in it. You know?
And yeah, that's when Viserys is like, you're nothing but a second son. And Daemon's just like smirking and he goes, say it.
That's what he goes. Yeah, he's something along the lines of like, your children are. And then Daemon whispers, he goes, say it. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh my God.
And then Vaymond says it.
He says it loud.
He says they're bastards. And if that wasn't enough, he says, and she is a whore.
That's right. Well, and they turned the reverb of the cathedral on. He said, they're bastards. And everyone's like, it was crazy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was because, it's kind of true that they're bastards, right? Like,
yeah, you got us there.
Like, but like, you didn't have to call her a whore.
Come on now.
Right? You didn't have to insult her.
Please, that's a princess.
Viserys at one point said like, I'll have your tongue for that.
Mm-hmm.
And after he says the bastards and the whore comment, Daemon just like cuts his head off, but slices him at like the mouth.
Yeah.
And he goes, he can keep his tongue.
Yeah.
And this was, I agree. This was kind of funny. Like, do you mean it was a little over the top?
I get it. Like, I think that is clever. I do think this is another one. Like, I just don't think the tongue in half head looked very good.
I mean, I watched it through my fingers. So.
I feel like the same effect could have been done with like a regular decapitation, you know?
Okay, sure.
But it's not anywhere near bad to say it's like a con of the episode or anything like that.
Yeah. I also think we've established this episode is a little bit, the style of it is like a little bit heightened. It's a little bit.
I'd rather have a choice that was creative and kind of works. So I'll take it, you know?
Yeah, it was. we've just established sort of the like vibe of the scene, the style of the scene. And so to me, something over the top is fine. It fits in enough.
Yeah.
I want to talk like a little bit about the actor who plays Vaymond.
Okay.
Was really funny in the after episode. And
Yeah.
he starts speaking. He was saying some really great things.
Yeah.
He says that basically, like, it just sort of has to speak the truth. That's sort of his character. He's gonna say it. And he's the one person who will speak about it. Everyone else, he said it's like the big pink elephant in the corner and no one else is speaking about it, but Vaymond will speak about it. And he said he's been holding it in for 16 years. And then he said he knows he's gonna fall on his sword. And even if nothing happens about it, he's gonna tell the truth and go out his own way.
Yeah.
That's just a great way to explain that character.
Yeah,
and who he
it shows
is.
a couple things. One, even this could have been such a very one-note character.
Could have been.
Right? But again, trusting the actors, they did their homework. They know who these characters are. And yeah, it's fun to see this kind of character. It's giving big Ned Stark energy, but a little bit more driven.
Yeah.
Which is fun because he's like, yeah, he's honest, he's to the point, he's blunt. I don't really care about your feelings. This is how it should be. And gets him killed because people like that just don't live in this world, you know?
Right, yeah. So then Viserys starts to feel sick and Alicent goes to help him, which Rhaenyra notices this. This moment sort of like, you see it spark a thought in Rhaenyra. And Alicent wants to give Viserys milk poppy and he says, I will not cloud my mind. I must make things right. It's just good setup. It's
really strong.
It's really strong because you see, I mean, that's just exactly what he's doing.
Yeah.
It's a good line.
They say this term a lot in the after episodes. That's what's got me thinking about it. Like they keep referring to the dinner scene as Viserys' last supper. So in my mind, this like he is like, I'm out after this. Like I'm gonna say my piece and then I'm probably gone.
I was gonna say, do you think this killed him?
Maybe.
Do you think that?
Yeah, all this like commotion and things last few days.
Yeah.
At least sped it up for sure.
I mean, he's moved around so much. There's so much
pushing
stress
himself so much
mentally and physically. Like, do you think this is what put him over the edge? But I also wonder if it's in his mind at the end of the day, it's made right.
That's the other thing I'm sort of thinking. Like, I think after that, he lets go.
Yeah.
You know? But it's good. Again, just in this isolated episode, the full story is being shown in such a great way. It's really strong.
It is
and
very,
really
very
sad.
strong. And just, it leaves you as an audience member. If something can give you that idea to ask those questions, you know it's good. Right?
For
this
sure.
wonder of how things are playing out. When you want more, that's usually good.
Yeah. Well, it's literally anytime. Like, he's got me thinking of like my family, like the older people in my family. Like, I am so connected to this character in these moments.
And part of that is they did such a good job of allowing the other characters to show their reactions. We see how it affects them. And that helps us to know how important this character was.
Yeah.
So it's good writing. So then we go to the next scene and the Maesters are prepping Vaymond's body. Or I guess the Silent Sisters, not the Maesters.
Yeah.
The Maesters are there, but it's really the Silent Sisters.
They're like looking over them.
Yeah. Who are the ones. And Rhaenys is watching. One of the Maesters comes up and warns her that it's bad luck to watch. And she says, the stranger has visited me more times than I can count. I assure you, he cares little whether my eyes are open or closed.
Yeah, very badass. Very cool colors that contrast with the rest of the episode.
It was just a cool shot of her watching and the
like
candles in the
backlit
back.
And it's warped. It's just really pretty. And it showed like everybody's sort of in this mental, cloudy space, and it's fun. It's a good visual representation.
It just feels like she's making a decision, right? And I think that she has a lot to think about, and we see that just from this shot. It's very cool.
Yeah.
So then we're at the dinner scene, and this scene is so good, Alex.
Yeah,
it is so good.
As of now, I feel like this is my by far favorite scene of the series.
This is my favorite episode.
Yeah, I think this is my favorite episode, and this is my favorite scene for sure.
Absolutely. Viserys is carried in. And he says how good it is to see you all tonight. He's just such a sweet, sweet man. And I thought this was so funny. Alicent prays before dinner.
It's funny in a way, again, that it's like the tension is so high that you have to laugh.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
And
well, because then... No, you go ahead.
Well, it's just like, again, because she is very religious. But again, like, what a sneaky way to stab Rhaenyra a little
Well,
bit,
yeah,
right?
she
'Cause-
backhands him. She
Exactly.
goes, and to Vaemond, may the gods give him rest. So yeah, she absolutely is
well,
like,
the whole idea, like there are stars everywhere in the Red Keep now. Like she's forcing this on, and it's just really good. Again, like it's in such a hypocritical way. Like that, she's using this guise of like soft, gentle religion to do these things, and it's you literally you're just like pray, okay,
right. Yes, no, it adds to the tension. So Viserys kind of like just toasts. He
Yeah.
starts a toast,
Very
and
cute.
Aegon is just being an asshole to Jace and is making these like sexual jokes to him and to Bela, and Jace kind of like shuts him down, and you really see it's really cool. I have more to say about this later, but it's just cool to see the contradiction between these characters is really clever to me.
Yeah.
And he says you can play the gesture, but hold your tongue in front of my betrothed. And it's just like honorable. He's trying, right? Like
it's again, like you've shown us one key trait of all these kids, and you're just doubling down.
Yeah.
So it makes them stronger.
Yeah.
It's great.
And so then Viserys takes his mask off, and he gives this beautiful speech, this phenomenal speech, and he says basically he wants them to see who he is.
Well, and it's revealed his like eye is gone.
Yeah,
right?
he's
like
got
it
this
is
gaping hole in his cheek.
Yeah,
it's
like we all knew
good.
it was bad, but it is visually like so much worse.
Yeah.
Right. So it very powerful. But continue.
Well, then he says, like, I want you to see me as I am, and he says, like, not just a king, but your father, your brother, husband, grandsire. And then he even makes a joke about how he like maybe he wasn't ever handsome, right?
Yeah.
It just is such a light to this character that even in this like such sad moment, he brings so much joy.
I'm literally getting so sad.
I know. And then he says, the crown cannot stay strong if the house of the dragon remains divided.
Yeah.
And he says, if not for the sake of the crown, then this old man who loves you all so dearly.
Yeah.
And this got me, I was like so emotional at this point.
Well, that is the final sort of laying of who this character is.
Because it's true.
Yeah. I feel in a heartbeat, he would trade away being king, the royal line, for like everybody in that room.
And I also think he feels so to blame for what has happened. He very much feels like it was him.
And it's just beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful because it's the entire amalgamation of who this person is boiled down to basically a few sentences, and it is so tragically sad.
Well, I think he just deeply feels like he failed, and I wrote this down. It is so funny to me in the best way that this man is so wonderful. A dinner with him saved the realm almost.
Yeah.
A single dinner. That's crazy. That all it took was a dinner for him to make this horrible, 20-year feud almost?
Yeah. Well, and that's the craziest thing that I am like, how do I believe this so hard? Because it like works, essentially, right?
Yeah, it does.
Rhaenyra stands up and toasts Alicent and says like the one honest thing she can. She was like, you have been with my father, you have stood by him, and I notice, and that's admirable. And it's like, oh fuck,
it's the love these two people have for this man who is so amazing and phenomenal and so kind that they are able to bond and essentially reconnect solely based on how they feel about this person and that he's dying, honestly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was great. She toasts to Alicent, and then Alicent stands up.
It's really good.
And toasts and says, we are both mothers and we love our children. We have more in common than we sometimes allow. And toasts to Rhaenyra. And she says, you will make a fine queen.
That was a, gasp moment for me.
And then I thought it was interesting, too, because when she says that, it cuts to Otto.
Yeah.
She says that and it cuts to Otto. And it's kind of, to me, that was implying had men like Otto not gotten in the middle of these two women in their relationship and their friendship, this wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
That's to me what it was implying. That Otto helped to bring about this divide, which he did. Do you agree?
I think that's exactly what they're trying to say. And again, it's just 0 words, but so much is being said.
Yeah. And then everyone's smiling and happy and sweet. And then this was really cool. So then Aegon gets up to Phil's cup and he talks to Bela, and is like, again, just keeps making these gross remarks. And Jace gets angry. And then Aemon gets up. And we've established that Aemon is like a fierce warrior. Like, he is scary. You don't want to get in a fight with him.
Yeah.
And Aemon does what his mom did. And he toasts to Prince Aegon and Aemon.
Yeah, really
and
good.
he basically says what he can say kindly about them. And it's these fond memories, and he toasts to them. And it's wonderful to see.
Yeah. Well, hammering down again. Like, if he were to ascend, he would be a very, like, righteous, forward-thinking king, right? Like,
Right.
he's already playing the game, but, like, the noble Viserys game,
Right.
you know?
And you just see how he would have been a really good king, I think. I really think he would have been. And it's just really, really cool to see that Rhaenyra raised him right. You know,
Yeah.
that how Rhaenyra raised him is so, so clear. So then Helena says, beware the beast beneath the boards. What does that mean?
Who does she gesture that to?
She says it.
Like, just to everybody?
I think. She kind of says it kind of zoned out.
Beast beneath the board.
Beast beneath the boards.
Trying to think of any specific, because a lot of the times when she says stuff like that, it's like specific.
Yeah, it
like
means
she was basically
something.
like, "You're gonna lose an eye, Aemon," right?
Right. So, like, what did this mean?
I don't know, maybe like a dragon. She also toasts though, right? She.
Yeah, then she says something so funny. She basically says, like, it's not so bad being married. Like,
Yeah, he'll just ignore you.
except when he's drunk sometimes.
And it's, again, like, you're leaning on all this really heavy material, so you need to have some comedy. And that's what makes the show, this episode, feel so fully developed. Like, there are moments of genuine humor within these incredibly sad valleys, which just adds such a depth to what's happening. Like, I believe it so much more, and it's so much more impactful because it's not all just brooding, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And then Viserys orders music. And they all start. Jace goes to Helena and asks to dance. And this is, I think I absolutely love when characters dance on TV shows or movies.
Yeah.
I think it is such an effective way to tell a story, whether it be sad, whether it be happy, whatever it is. I think anytime dancing can just say so much about the people in the scene.
Yeah.
And this is just so fun, and they're like hopping around. It's very cute. They
very
get food.
cute.
Even Otto is happy at one point.
Well, that's what really got me. At one point, like, you see Otto and Alicent, like, legitimately laughing. And Otto's, like, making a joke of some kind. And I'm like, they've never done that before. And it's just, again, like, this music is very obvious, but it fits really well. It's happy, and it's slowly turning more sentimental, dreamy as we sort of shift to Viserys's POV of him getting more and more, like, ill.
Sick
And I
sick,
think what
yeah.
you said earlier, like, I think after he sees this start to happen, he's truly letting go at this point.
Yeah.
And it makes, because seeing them happy, you're like, oh my God, I'm really sad about it. Like, it's so sad.
Yeah, and so then Alicent calls guards to take Viserys away, and this is so good storytelling. And Aemond is facing Lucerys with his bad eye. He's sitting there with the eye that's gone,
Yeah.
facing Lucerys. And Lucerys is kind of like chuckling, but I think he's just happy. I think he just thinks,
No, you don't remember? They bring out the pig on the table. So he's remembering the scene where they made fun of him for not having a dragon.
oh,
Remember?
oh shit.
Yeah.
No fucking way.
Yeah. Because I remember being like, dude, stop fucking laughing. Like, you're pissing him off.
Oh shit. Okay, I must have been writing when I saw this.
Yeah, no,
because
they do that big, they, like, slowly bring in, like, the roasted pig on the table. And because then that's when Aemon starts to look at him and he, like, laughs again.
I think Lucerys then was probably, I got everything except them bringing the pig, because I was like, why is he laughing? But no, okay, I get it now. I got it now. I think he was laughing because he probably thought it was a funny memory.
Yeah, no, it definitely wasn't like laughing at a little bit, but I think again it was just him being a child, you know?
Right. I don't think it was him like being rude. I think it was just him. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So then Aemond like aggressively stands up and he decides to toast a final toast to his nephews. And he says, each of them handsome, wise, and strong.
Again,
and
at this point, the tension
comes
I'm
right back.
white knuckled
I'm like,
on the couch.
and I like gasp. And then he goes to these 3 strong boys.
Which I can't name a sicker burn than that.
That was good.
These 3 strong boys. Like, damn.
I know. I'm going to say it. Eamon is so cunty.
It's true.
It's so
really
good.
true. I'm really here for it.
And Jace goes, I dare you to say that again. And they just like start fighting. And it's the kids are
turns
all
sideways
fighting
quick.
really quick. Like Jace slaps Aemon. Aegon like shoves Luke's head on the table.
Well, and it's very funny because immediately it is not a fight. It is Aemon and Aegon bullying these children.
Yeah.
They're so much stronger.
And then so the guards grab Jace and Luke, which is hilarious. And Jace breaks away and Daemon sort of stops him. And Jace and Luke are like sent away.
Yeah.
And Daemon and Aemon have sort of a little standoff moment.
Yeah.
And I think this is later they're supposed to have a big fight.
Yeah.
Like later, we haven't even seen this yet. I don't know if it happens in season 2 because we haven't finished season 2. But I think this is sort of supposed to foreshadow that moment.
Yeah, I think this sets up because they talk about it a bit with like the various plans Daemon hatches going forward, that they see each other as like rivals and equals, which is cool.
So then, even despite this fight, so they just send them off. They send the kids off, and Rhaenyra, we're calling them kids, even though like most of them are like at least at minimum teenagers.
21.
He said at the end of the episode, he said 17 to 21 kind of thing, but like they're still the children generation to me, you know? Sure. So then Rhaenyra says it's best like they go back to Dragonstone sort of to relieve the tension, and Alicent wants her to stay. And so Rhaenyra says, I will. I'm going to stay and I'll go home on Dragonback.
Very good.
And Alicent says her and the king would be happy. And it's just so sweet.
Yeah.
And
and again, you're just like, how did Viserys do that? Like, it just took them sitting down and talking.
Right. And because, I mean, they love each other. They want to be friends. They want to be close. And they're just they feel both so wronged by each other.
Yeah.
And you see in this moment, they were going to reconcile.
They were going to try at least.
Yeah. This scene to me is so phenomenally written.
Yeah.
Because it really shows how the kids are going to take on their parents' beliefs and then stick to it. So it's this generational divide of these now adults, Alicent, Rhaenyra, Otto, these adults, Daemon, right, created this strife, taught it to their children. Their children have grown up with this now. Yeah. Right? Been taught from the day they were born about these feelings. And now when the adults want to change, it's too late. This generational divide is there now. Motion. Right? It is absolutely within their family heritage, their culture as a family now, to like hate each other. So when these adults want to like flip on a dime after a dinner and change, it's too late because you taught these kids to be this way. And it is so phenomenal writing to me to have all the adults reconcile, and it's the kids who are the ones that fight again. Because I thought, like, okay, you know what? Let's say Jace takes the throne. Let's say the war never happened. Jace took the throne. That doesn't matter because as soon as Rhaenyra and Alicent are dead, this generation is going to fight now. Yeah. So all this dinner, I think, would have done, obviously this is all speculation, but in my mind, all it would have done was delay the inevitable because you taught this to them. Well, and it's very cool paralleling the last episode where the divide of the Greens and the Blacks were because of the kids. Yes. And now the stopping of the reformation is again the now young adults. Like it is, the conflict has truly passed a generation at this point, which is cool. Like literally that's what the Targaryens are all about, right? Yes. Like their legacies and dynasties and all that. Like it's every Targaryen's motivation for everything. And it's so fun to see it play out in a negative way for them. Yeah. Super smart, super well done, very insightful, feeling very Game of Thrones. It's great. And it's just cool. Emma Darcy talks about that Viserys's, this was in the after episode, Viserys's weakness was that he doesn't stick by decisions or law. And if he doesn't always lay down the law, and in moments he just doesn't stick to his guns. He's not as decisive as he needs to be. Yeah. And in this moment, he did that. He did what he needed to do for Alicent and for Rhaenyra and to bring them together. And that's just really cool because that's his arc. He's a different person. And I think it's easier to write a character arc when you know the character's dying. Yeah. But I don't think that takes away any of the credit for it. I agree. So then we move on to the next scene. And this one's really short. And this was an example of what I mean by we're varying scenes, lengths. And it keeps the pacing going. It keeps the energy up. Variation is the key to making things entertaining. And it's a really long scene. This dinner scene is a really long scene. And we have a tiny little scene where we see the handmaiden Tyla going to see the white worm Massaria. And all we see, that's really all we see. So we know that some seed has been planted. That's all we know.
Yeah.
And then we move to the last scene of the episode, which is Viserys in bed, and he's looking bad, and Alicent's taking care of him. Viserys just says, "I'm sorry." And this was really sad, but I think it hit. And they don't tell us this, but he starts talking, thinking it's Rhaenyra. Because this parallels the scene before where he thought Rhaenyra was Alicent and she corrected him.
Yeah.
So now...
Which they've done enough that we can piece this together.
Fully believe it.
Nobody had to tell us this, but we understand, which is great.
Yeah, he didn't say Rhaenyra, right? And he couldn't for the plot, but he didn't need to.
Yeah.
And he starts talking about the prophecy. And Alicent is kind of trying to piece things together. She's like, our son Aegon. And I think the dialogue was strong because if I turned off what I knew, I could see how Alicent could take this from this. Because saying the prince that was promised sounds like, and she says Prince Aegon, and to unite the realm, and you are the one, you must do this. And I thought that was really cool because it then feels to me, well, he believes Rhaenyra is the prince who was promised.
Yeah.
And I think that
which
is so sweet.
Yeah, again, nobody's shaken from their beliefs. And it's...
Right.
I don't know. I remember really hating the idea that this whole thing was based on a misunderstanding.
Yeah.
But on the rewatch, I get it.
Well, I think it's because they make you fall in love with Viserys so much.
Yeah. You get it. You're on, everybody's sort of on good terms. Alicent literally says, Rhaenyra, you will be a good queen. I concede this to you. I want to be friends again. And then to have the pressure back on of your dying husband's wish to be actually... Aegon should be king, and you're well, fuck, I'll do it,
because he says you must do this.
Yeah, in this episode specifically, you could not have picked a more perfect time to humanize Alicent again.
Yeah.
Because I feel I don't know, she's sort of set up to be a villain for Rhaenyra, but boy do I feel bad for her,
Right.
She's been through so much, and everybody's been through so much. It's just really strong. So well done.
This scene was really cool. So after this, she's like, I understand, my king. She goes and blows out a candle. Just, I know it's a little on the nose, but it's just cool to me.
It's cool.
Right? That this final moment, this whole thing about her lighting these candles, it's just it's a visual way to show a transition and an end.
Yeah, and she blows a candle, she walks out, we rack focus to I honestly don't even know what it is.
It was the dagger.
Oh shit.
The prophecy dagger.
Yeah. I literally I didn't notice because I was too busy seeing Viserys in the background in the bokeh and just living that. Okay, so
they show the prophecy dagger. It's
very
really
beautiful
cool.
shot.
And then this is a devastating shot. This is devastating.
Haunting.
So fucking sad. He's just starts crying.
Yeah. Well, and he's wheezing. He's in so much pain.
And it's this kind of
alone in the dark.
The shot, right? Alone in the dark. So true. And it's these shots. They're kind of long, right? It's not quick cuts because it's just showing the same thing. It's just kind of this long shot of him, and it cuts a couple times, but it's not a lot. So you really feel like you're there watching him die.
Yeah. Because
of the length of these shots.
And like they said, they filmed each angle in its entirety many times, so he was able to play and discover new things each time, and it's emotional.
And he's saying no more,
no
more, and he's reaching out.
And it's, again, if this episode were 1% worse, this would not work at all.
This would be cheesy
and bad and a laughing stock, but it is so powerful
because it was perfectly done, and the acting was unbelievable, and it had a point of view and a perspective.
Yeah.
They weren't playing it safe. They wanted you to feel bad for this character. Not only feel bad, they wanted you to fall in love because they wanted you to remember how he was loved by everyone, and you felt like you lived in this court yourself, and
Yeah.
that you personally were going to take a loss from this character dying.
Yeah.
And they did that through just such subtle and great storytelling.
It's
right?
like, it's one of those far-reaching things. It's like when a person who's too good passes away, right? Like,
Yeah.
however many years ago, like when Robin Williams passed away, right?
Yeah.
Like, you don't know him, but like, it affects you, you know?
Yeah.
It's,
And something else why it works is because he's not a perfect character.
mm-hmm.
And so it humanizes him so much. Because if he was this angel who never made mistakes, never had problems, you wouldn't feel as sad.
Mm-hmm.
Part of what makes it so sad is he has flaws and he deeply regrets those flaws and is aware of them.
Yeah.
So just, it's a fully fleshed out character.
For sure.
It's really good.
It's, yeah. It's, I mean, we could talk forever about this, but honestly, you should just go watch it.
It was so masterfully done, this death scene. So sad, it gut-wrenching.
Yeah. We haven't looked it up. We record these reactions right after we watch the episodes, so the ideas are fresh. I hope he won something. I hope a lot of people were nominated for things on this episode.
Yeah. Well, it's just also really clear that the character understood, because after the episode, he said this. I thought this was amazing. He said he was too human to be king.
Powerful.
That's good. That's so
That's
powerful.
really good.
It's really good. He just fully understands his character. And he's like so sweet. He says in some respects he wasn't the right man for the job, but in history he was. So he does have a legacy. It's so good.
And again, like, that's an idea nobody, obviously it was in like the after episode, but like in the terms of like the universe, nobody needs to know that, right? Like,
Right.
that is his vision of who that character is. And I think that's what humanizes all of these characters so well, is that these actors are so aware of who they are and they're inside these characters so holistically. We're 8 episodes in, so there should be some connection, obviously, but I'm very pleasantly surprised with how emotional that this episode got me. Definitely my favorite episode so far.
Me too.
Even the bads were the best of any other episode, really, you know?
I just want to say this really quick, unless you have something else to say specifically.
I don't think so.
Something that's cool, this is an IMDb fact, but the moment where Damon gives him the crown, it was an accident. It fell off the actor's head, and then Matt Smith went and picked it up, and they just kept going with it.
That's really good.
That's really cool.
I feel like a lot of the episode feels that way. Like, it's...
Well, because that's what I mean by they clearly trusted the actors.
Yeah. It's rehearsed, but in a way that's natural.
Yes.
Like, everything... Yeah. I don't even see acting half the time in this episode.
Right. Is there anything else you want to say?
Can we talk... we said it earlier. Just the last thing Viserys says is my love. Like, he's calling out to Emma.
Yes. It's so sad. It cuts to black and he says, "My love." I thought he was talking about Rhaenyra.
Okay.
I like the take better that he was talking about Emma.
That's what I took from it both times. And yeah, we talked about Avatar a little bit. It's giving big leaves from the vine. For
Oh,
me.
okay.
It's just, yeah, I don't know. Like, I said this earlier, like, good storytelling and old men are sort of my kryptonite. So this episode was for me, I feel.
You're so funny.
I'm very affected, and very happy about it.
I wrote down, I knew a woman directed this. I said a woman directed this episode. And then I went and looked it up, and it
Yeah.
was a woman. I just think, so far to me, the best episodes have been the ones directed by women, because
Completely agree.
at its core, it's about women.
Yeah.
It's about these two women and their relationship to each other and how that affects everyone else.
Well, and I think it's the relationships as a whole. Like, each one of those episodes, I think it was episode 5 was the first one.
Yeah.
This one, there was one other one. It's just so very clearly shifts from then this event happened, then this event, to everybody's feeling this way.
Yeah.
But those feelings are enacting actions.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, is that's what creates the plot, is
Yeah.
these characters are so clearly acting on how they feel about each other,
Yeah.
because that's how they decided they were going to act on.
So maybe, because this was kind of a downer episode, maybe the quote should be something on the happier side.
I said all of them. Is
I
my
have
problem.
a very one of my favorite. This is iconic to us. So I have an Aemond
Okay, go
quote.
ahead.
So this is back in the training scene. Sir Kristen says, "Great job after being bested. You'll be winning tourneys in no time." And Aemond, in his cunty self, says, "I don't give a shit about tourneys." And then turns to his nephews and says, "Nephews, have you come to train?"
It's really good.
And the first time hearing that, we cackled because it's hilarious. Because Aemond is literally like a mustache twirling
Like
villain in the
serving.
scene.
He is serving.
It's so good.
That actor, baby girl, sweetest.
It's so true.
Cutie
He's
pie.
so nice.
He knows all the lore about this world, all the characters.
Yep.
It's so funny to see him be this like really like evil guy.
Absolutely serving.
And just be such a sweet little guy.
Maybe that can be the end episode quote.
Okay. I think that works.
Fantastic.
Okay, I think that's it for this episode. Thank you all so much for listening. We love to hear opinions, whether you agree with us or not. So let us know if you liked this episode as much as we did.
Yeah, we've finally been getting some good interactions in the various social medias, Instagram, TikTok, great comments, your opinions. We love chatting with you in any comment section, so please keep them coming. That's what this podcast is all about, just starting dialogue about good art. You can find us on all of our social medias at WTT Writers Room. Leave a review, like, subscribe, comment based on whatever platform you're watching this on. I'm Alex.
I'm Madison.
And this has been
Welcome to the Writers' Room.